I'd like to thank the grace of heaven, the virtues of the masters, and the compassion and mercy of the grand predecessors, transmitters, simple masters, lecturers, and everyone for giving me this opportunity today to talk about chapter 39 of the Tao Te Ching. Okay, all right, that's Attain, Oneness. Okay, all right, this is the second chapter of the virtue portion. Okay, virtue half, the classic. Okay, last time, this is 3 sections. All right, I think we left off at section 2. All right, so yeah, this is, I might take 80, 90 minutes. All right, okay, okay, let's go to the outline. This is where we left off, I believe, right? Page 5 or page 6. Okay, so this is a summary of the first section, which Lao Tzu said, when the world, or when heaven, sky attain oneness, which is clarity, right? Okay, when heaven has attained oneness, it's clarity, right? When the earth attaining oneness, it's tranquil, stable, okay, etc. All right, then the deities has divinity, the valley has abundance, living things have health, life force. The rulers are examples, okay? Then it applies to the individual person also, okay? So when your mind has oneness, it's clear, right? Or when your heart, your home base has oneness, then it's tranquil, stable. When your spirituality has oneness, then you have divinity, divine wisdom, etc., etc. Okay, wealth. When you have oneness, or when your wealth, prosperity has oneness, it's abundant, it's surplus. Okay, same thing with physicality, your health. Then when you have leadership, right? Be it, and there are many roles, right? Some of them are, for a certain period of time, right? Then you set the example. You are the role model, okay, or the paragon, all right? When you have, okay, so that's when you have oneness. Now, the next section, section 2, he's saying, on the other hand, if there is no oneness, or if the sky lack, or the heaven lack clarity, then it would break apart. It means that where there's no oneness, when it lacks it, the earth lacking tranquility would erupt, okay? And then the gods lacking divinity would vanish, okay? The valleys lacking abundance would wither, okay, or die out, okay? And mere things lacking life would be extinct, okay? Or lacking the life force, right? And the rulers lacking example or standard, okay? That means they're either incompetent or not qualified. However grand and high would be toppled, all right? Okay, so, all right, so the basic meaning of the first phrase, the sky, the heavens, the opposite of clear skies is dark clouds. So when the clouds gather, usually bad weather, be it rain, downpour, thunderstorm will likely follow, right? So we know, well, but today, well, at least in the Northeast, we have some light rain, right? This early morning was really heavy fog, but anyway. Okay, so even though we may say that, oh yeah, rain or even thunderstorms is, how can I say, it happens, right? Occasionally, especially during certain seasons, right? Spring, we're in spring. So it's it's regular. Now, it depends on, which part of the world you're in too, obviously. Certain, especially the tropical rainforest areas, it rains almost every day, but okay. But those are exceptions. So that's what I'm saying. Usually, rain, thunderstorm, even heavy snow, those are exceptions, okay? So if the sky lacks the oneness of the Tao, it is as if the sky breaks apart, like when a rain or storm comes down, okay? That's another literal meaning. Now, for the individual, the lack of mental clarity is like the dark clouds or storm clouds and bad weather in your mind. So it manifests as a chaotic and confused mind. That's if our mind, we do not attain oneness, okay? So, we have no mental clarity, okay? So unclear thoughts lead to poor choices and decisions, which will lead to negative results in life. That's the consequence, right? Okay. All right, so that's having to do with clarity, right? So the next is the earth, okay, lacking tranquility. So it's external, when Lao is talking about nature, right? So if the earth lacks tranquility, the earth is no longer in balance or equilibrium. So when the earth lacks oneness, it will become earth-shaking and earth-shattering. So, events like earthquakes, landslides, etc. So those are not the norm usually, right? And so that means, when the earth does not have oneness or lacks, things are out of whack, okay, out of balance. So that's why, there will be earth shaking and earth shattering events, okay? So another meaning is, although the earth is stable and still most of the time, right? Even though, geologists will tell you, yeah, no, the earth is always moving, except that, because of the tectonic plates, et cetera, okay? But the movement is usually very slow, or the movement is very small in a short period of time, right? So the movements, you only see or notice the movements of the plates, the earth, tectonic plates, over a long period of time, right? Like, the supercontinent of what's that? Gondwana, or is it Pangea? One of them, and it's split up, right? But that happened over millions and millions of times. Okay, so when the earth lacks oneness, it will manifest natural calamities such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tidal waves, etc. Okay, now that's external, that's the earth. Now internally, for the individual, the lack of tranquility can manifest as eruptions of anger or rage. Okay. All right. So the lack of stability or stable base, that's the heart, or stability of the heart or stable base at home, can manifest as domestic discord, chaos, all right, resulting in tension, strife, or even violence. Okay, so that's the danger of not attaining oneness in our heart, right? Okay, or the home. Okay, so the third is about the gods, right? Lacking divinity, right? Okay, lacking divinity, right? Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, so it's on the spiritual side, right? Not the physical aspect or worldly. So the gods representing avatars. That means they're like examples, paragons, okay, of human attributes and virtues. So they need the power of divinity, we say Lingni, or spirituality, okay? So another meaning is, so when the gods lack divinity, they cannot continue as deities. They become useless, right? So once the gods lose their, you can say, sense of purpose, right? Then it's no longer meaningful. Then they fade away, right? They become mythology. Oh, that's why I'm getting ahead. Okay. So if the gods lack divinity, the oneness of the Tao, They become mythology and faith from the memory of human worshippers. This applies to all religions. So if you go, way back, four, 5,000 years, 3,000 BCE, okay, or even further, ancient peoples do have, do worship, deities, okay, but over time, a lot of these quote unquote ancient religions, like the ancient Egyptian gods or the Persian or Assyrian, Babylonian, even the Hindu, or even go further back to the Stone Age, late Stone Age, the I don't know the gods of the native Aborigines in Australia, for example, or in Africa, or in Europe, or in central central South America, Mesoamerica. Once they lose the purpose, of divinity, then it's no longer worshipped. I don't think many people today worship these ancient deities anymore. All right. Okay. So that's the problem. Okay. On the individual level, the lack of divinity, which is the belief, the faith, the commitment, etc., right, in spiritual practice, means one cannot manifest the authentic power of spirituality, like our divine wisdom. Okay, so the Tao seems to vanish from one's life, leaving only a sense of emptiness. All right. Okay, so that's what the deities lacking divinity, okay, means. Okay, they vanish. So a lot of the ancient religions, they're gone, right? They become legends, mythology, etc. All right. Then the fourth phrase is about the valley, okay, lacking abundance with wither. So, okay. So on a physical, worldly level, as opposed to spiritual for the deities, the valley that used to be fertile and rich declines without the abundance that oneness brings. For example, like the river or stream that ran through the valley before it dries up. So resulting in a lush greenness, which represents abundance, that was before to become brown and yellow, then they wither, okay? They become extinct, okay? And the meaning is, if the valley lacks oneness, it has insufficient life force, so it is void of vitality, so its abundance is depleted and exhausted, okay? All right. Now, for the individual level, okay, the lack of abundance means deterioration in multiple aspects of life, such as material prosperity, social connections, relationships, creativity, etc. Okay. All right. So another understanding is for the individual. Okay. Now, whatever our sufficiency turns into deficiency, okay, becomes lacking. Surplus turns into scarcity. Wealth turns into penury. Okay, that means poverty. Okay. Now, okay, the next, the fifth line phrase is myriad things lacking life would be extinct. Okay, so at the world level, without the energy of life, that the oneness of the Tao brings, all living things begin to weaken and decline. Okay, so the life force is diminishing. All right, so if all living things lack the oneness of Tao, then they will become extinct, right? When we have no more life force, right? There's no more, you can say, procreation. So, the numbers will decline, all right? Now, on the personal level, okay, it just means that the lack of life or life force, vitality, can lead to decreasing energy and interest to do anything, all right? So that's the internal level. on the external level for the individual, physicality, it can be declining health that eventually leads to death or extinction at the personal level. Okay. Now the last phrase is about rulers lacking standards. Okay. However grand and high they would be toppled. So if rulers are lacking in the oneness of doubt, they lose the respect of the people and the ability to inspire them or lead by example. Okay, so this eventually results in the loss of their authority and they will be toppled. So this is on the social level, right? Right. So the meaning is if the rulers lack the oneness of doubt, then they will lack auspiciousness and harmony, then they will fall down from their grand and high position, won't be able to keep their lofty positions. Okay, so on a personal level, this is what it means. This means that the lack of oneness means other people no longer look to you for guidance or advice. All your opinions or suggestions fall down. That means you're no longer considered a person, to lead or to turn to. All right. Okay. So you're gonna lose that position or status. Okay. So another understanding is you lose credibility and status. So whatever authority you had before is no longer accepted or recognized. All right. So that's on the personal side. Then the deeper is when we lack oneness, the individual, you no longer conform to the heavenly standard. So you have departed from the center or of the middle way. That's we deviated from the Tao, the true Tao. Okay. Another higher understanding is on a personal level, already not being accord with the heavenly standard, it will be difficult to abide with the Tao, right? That's difficult to, you can say, remain, abide, follow Tao. Difficult to perform and carry out actions in congruence with the Tao. So that's the danger, okay? So those who lack oneness does not have the Tao within them, and they are separated from the Tao, so they are no longer at one with the universe, with the cosmos, and are separate from the universe as well, right? Okay, so the key point is when all the above 6 phrases lack the oneness of Tao, that's, the heaven, right, the earth, gods or deities, valley, living things and rulers, okay, they are no longer harmoniously fused together, no longer at one. It is no longer in accord with the middle way, which is to deviate from the state of our Buddha nature essence. That's on a personal level. Okay, so here's part B, table B. That's loss of oneness or lacking oneness. Okay, so when the heaven sky lacks oneness, the consequences, it breaks apart. Okay, so the human level is your mind. When you lack or lose oneness, it's going to, you can say, be confused, etc. Okay, and then, so for the earth, it's going to erupt, right? Earthquakes, etc. Okay, your heart or home base, you'll have display anger and rage, okay, etc., etc. All right, so this is the 3. Okay. All right. Okay. Then in the conclusion, I'll have more to add to this. Okay. All right. Let's go to section 3 now. Okay. All right. So, therefore, the honored uses the lowly as basis or as foundation. The higher uses the lower, or you can say the superior uses the inferior as a foundation. Okay. What does that mean? Okay, so basic meaning is to attain the oneness of the Tao. It's actually an incremental process. Okay, it's one you can say one building block at a time, or one step at a time. So from the low to the high. The low is the basis of the high, for the high. Okay. This idea is also displayed in previous chapters, all right? Okay, so this is just sort of like reaffirming. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. So the another meaning of the first phrase is that great thing is built from lesser components. Okay, there's all grand things are made up of parts. Okay, so those small parts. Okay, which individually may not be valuable or mean that much. Okay, so on a individual level, the honored, is based on the lowly or the highly valued is based on the, so building blocks that are of no great value in themselves, right? But can come together in a synergistic way to make something of great value, right? So let's use the, this is external now, okay? Let's use the brick. The brick by itself has very little value, right? But by putting together many bricks, you can build a wall. Then by assembling, many walls together, you can build a structure. And when you are finished with the structure, it can become a magnificent structure. So all built from the lowly brick. So for example, the Great Wall. Well, yeah, they use different type of bricks, but not the red bricks that we're familiar with, but nevertheless, bricks, mud bricks and stuff like that. Okay, so castles, building, stone blocks, pyramids. I think it's limestone blocks or something. Anyway, big blocks, but still blocks. You could go on, right? Machu Picchu, as the Mayan, pyramids, they're built with stone blocks also. Go even further, right? Stonehenge, the megaliths of, I think it's usually some in Western Europe. Okay, all that. All right. Oh yeah, or the what God? It's called the Maui of what's that place called? Rupa Nui, aka Easter Island. The stone. What's that? Not statue, but yeah, face statues. Okay, all right. So it's all made from stone. Okay, all right. So basic meaning is now talks about the higher uses the lower as foundation. So similar to the previous phrase, the high rests on top of the low. Okay, so for instance, without the base of a mountain, there can be no summit, right? So without the lower levels, the highest levels of a skyscraper cannot tower over a city. So everything is based on the lower level, right? So, or the high level anyway. So the higher uses the lower as a foundation. So whatever is high must use the lower level as a basis, okay? So similarly with the individual, so anyone who wishes to attain the oneness of the Tao, achieve the high level, must begin with the fundamentals and then build up level by level. Okay, so you have to start from the basics, all right? Okay, so deeper understanding is this build up level by level applies to everything, not just the spiritual pursuits of the Tao, but for all the worldly pursuits as well, be it physical, material, intellectual, artistic, etc. All right? Okay, so higher in all our pursuits, be it spiritual or material, we must start with the fundamentals as the basis. By putting together each foundation over time, we can attain the highest level, okay? All right, so the implication is there's no overnight success, okay? No sudden jump to complete spiritual enlightenment, okay? So even the Buddha, yeah, he attained enlightenment, supreme enlightenment, in this one lifetime. But even then, it took him, quite a few years of, really dedicated, hardcore, you can say, cultivation in this lifetime. But also in previous lifetimes, right? He talked about it, how he was a bodhisattva before, then before that, he was an arhat before that, so all the way going back when he was an animal. Okay, so anyway, all right, so it still takes a while. Okay, even though you can achieve it in any particular lifetime, but it's based on previous lifetimes work, okay, or effort or cultivation. All right, so to attain the oneness of the Tao, one begins with the basics first, then build up over time to attain the highest level. Okay, so that's what it's saying. All right. All right, then the next. All right. Okay. So now he's talking about the rulers, the sovereigns. Okay. Thus the rulers call themselves alone, bereft, unworthy. Is this not using the lowly as basis? Is it not so? Okay. So, okay, alone, bereft, unworthy. Those are, okay, the usual, okay, so basic meaning is, okay, rulers who understand the Tao also understand that their high positions are dependent on those below them, on the advisors, ministers, et cetera, okay? So rulers who are wise understood that their high positions are dependent on the people, okay? So it's not their themselves alone, all right? Okay, so another meaning is, so they use lowly terms to refer to themselves as an expression of humility to signify or to signal that they understood their reliance on the people. Okay, so that's why they use the term lonely, bereft, and unworthy. Okay, okay. So the term "gua," I think it's "gua," yeah, "gua." Okay, okay. It literally means widower or widowed. Okay, orphan. Sorry, orphan, widow. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So it was often used in ancient times to express humility, similar to the sentiment in Western expression. It is lonely at the top. All right. So, okay. Bereft means all alone by yourself, expression of the loneliness of you alone at the top with all the weight of responsibilities of governing on your shoulders. Okay, so that's the meaning behind that bereft. Okay, it doesn't literally mean that you're widowed or orphaned. Okay, all right. So the line about is just not using the lowly as the basis. This line is to emphasize the second point about the attainment of oneness. The higher your attainment, the more humble you must be. So Lao Tzu is asking us rhetorically, isn't this the case? All right. So not all rulers, though, follow this practice as advocated by Lao Tzu. Okay, so this practice of humility became more of a formality, all right, since not all rulers had learned the true essence of Tao or the meaning of the Tao. Okay, so even many who are educated in the Tao did not follow the practice of expressing such humility, or they weren't sincere. Okay, so most rulers in subsequent dynasties, this is talking about Lao Tzu's time, roughly 2,500, 600 years ago. Okay, they refer to themselves as sovereign royalty. Okay, sovereign. I think this word means 真, okay, 真, which is most similar to the royal form of we, or the plural in modern times. Okay, 真, right? So today, most royalty today use the term 真, or in China, especially after Lao Tzu. Okay, so further understanding is thus this form of self-address is no longer associated with any of the notions of being alone, bereft, or unworthy, no longer associated with any notion of humility. Okay, that's the problem. So the implication is that the rulers need to understand that their high positions are really dependent on the lowly masses. So the rulers must be humble, need to be humble. Okay, so this is to emphasize the second point of attaining oneness, which is you must be more humble the higher your position for the rulers. Okay, or the higher your achievement of Tao. So that's on the grand level, as a ruler, or social society level, or on an individual level. Okay, so part two. Okay, three related points on the oneness. Okay, so the oneness is something you build up, right, gradually, right? Okay, one step at a time. Then the higher your attainment, the more humble you must be. All right. So then third point, it's related to the second one, is there can be no flaunting or showing off in the process of attaining oneness. Okay, no pride. Okay. All right, we covered this summary part one last week. All right, but I'm gonna get to another point at the end. Okay, which is the at the human level. Okay, the appendix. Okay, all right. So let's go to the next phrase. Okay, all right. This should be the okay. So all right. So we're done here. Now. This is, I think, second to the last phrase, okay? Or sentence, rather. Okay. Therefore, the attainment. Okay, so there are two versions of. Okay, so the first one is, therefore, the attainment, okay, of numerous honor is no honor. Okay, or that's this phrase right here. Hold on. Okay, okay, so this means, I think it's pronounced yu, right? Yu. Yeah, yu. Okay, fourth tone. All right. It means fame, honor, prestige, reputation, etc. Okay. Now, then the second version is and this. Okay, so therefore the attainment of the various parts of a carriage is not a carriage. What does that mean? Okay, so generally I think they use this one. Okay, this pronounces yu. I think it's yu. Yeah, I think it's pronounced yu. Yeah, second tone. Okay, all right. So that means various parts and components of a carriage. Yeah, it just means component parts. Okay. So the basic meaning of the phrase is that the human tendency is to let honors and titles inflate one's ego, or influence, or influence you. Okay, make your head bigger. Okay, so that's the human fallacy, because we have an ego. That's the problem. So once we have we receive praise, accolades, honors, titles, etc. Then there's a tendency, right? Especially if you're not a Tao cultivator, it's going to inflate your ego. All right, okay. Now for the Tao cultivators, however, okay, all right, they prefer the opposite of gaining honors and titles, okay, to become ever more humble, regardless of any external validation, praise, or hype. That's what the Tao actually, yeah, the Tao cultivators should strive to do that. But the Tao sages, it should be the opposite, right? Would not need. Okay, so all right, okay, so. Fortunately is okay, so this egocentric tendency of people can be used to gauge the level of a Tao teacher. Okay, so Tao master, Tao teacher. So those who show arrogance and put on airs are far from the Tao, while those who are down to earth and approachable are more likely to be the real master. Okay, so that's how we can tell. All right, okay. Alternative meaning is the gathering all the components or the parts of a carriage does not make it a carriage, because you haven't assembled it together yet. So, you could have a wheel, a seat, I don't know, a steering wheel, a door, etc., a frame. But those individual parts doesn't make a car or a carriage unless you put them together, right? So the carriage is just a name given to all the components assembled together to make a thing called a carriage or cart or car, right? Okay, so the more understanding is the carriage itself has nothing. Yeah, there's no thing that says this is a carriage. Okay, the component doesn't say, a wheel is a wheel. It's not a carriage. A door is a door. It's not a carriage, right? A seat is a seat, right? Okay, so it's just made up of all the parts, the components, labeled carriage components, okay, or car components that are assembled together to make a thing called carriage, right? Or car, cart, etc. Okay, all right. So the key point is this: is the thing that the object, the assembled object that we call the carriage or cart or car. Okay, without its parts, it's an empty shell. It's meaningless. Okay, so a carriage is just a label for the components put together. Okay, so that's that's the same idea from the previous phrase about what, or the beginning of the section 3. The honor uses the lowly, or the higher uses the lower as foundation, right? So a carriage is based on all the components called carriage parts or components put together, right? So this is to caution the honor and lofty, okay, not to become attached to honors and titles, not to be corrupted by wealth and power, and thus lose humility. Okay, so this is similar to not to be corrupted by riches or honors, not to depart from principle, despite poverty or humble origin, not to submit to force or threat. This is called a great person. Okay, so that's from Mencius. Okay, book 2. Yeah, part 2. Okay, chapter 2. All right. Okay. All right. So the implication is all the honors and titles are just labels. They are empty in substance, though. Okay. So they're just like the empty shell of a carriage. Okay. So many things have names and labels. Okay. Then you combine them to form an item. Okay. An object, a thing. Then a label for that object or thing appears. Okay. Item appears. And the names for the parts vanish. This is just the same for honors and titles, right? So in order to receive honors or titles, it's all based on the simple components, right? Different components that led you to achieve, right? That led to some kind of achievement, right? Or so for you to get that title or honor, right? Okay, so before that achievement appeared or was attained, okay, there's no such label for that achievement yet, right? Or that honor, okay? Because it's all based on these individual components, parts, right? But once you achieve something, they give it a name, okay? And then all those individual parts disappear, right? Or it's not that they're no longer relevant, but they're forgotten. All they look at is just that label for that achievement, the honor, the title, etc. All right. Okay. So here comes the last 2 phrases. Okay. So he's saying, okay, he's concluding by saying, do not wish to be shiny like the jade, rather be dull like the rocks. Okay. So, all right. So, okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Not that. Okay. Basic meaning of line. It just refers to Tao cultivators do not like to be shiny. That is to be the limelight, to attract attention, to seek the limelight or anything high profile or visible, but be like rocks, which is to keep a low profile. Be humble, okay? The humble rock versus the shiny, attractive diamond, for example, okay? So another meaning is, Tao cultivators feel no need for others to bow down to them, so they prefer to not project the image of power, even if they happen to occupy powerful positions, because they understand how transient or temporary, okay, power can be in the material world, okay? Transient means not permanent, non-permanence, right? Anicca, right? Okay, all right. So additional meaning is, due to the strong tendency of our discriminating mind, however, so we only want jade, okay, because we place more value in the jade, but not in the rocks, right? That's unfortunate because we discriminate, right? We say, hey, the jade is much more valuable, it's rare, right? Than, common rocks. Who cares about rocks, right? Okay, so therefore we put more value, all right? So, all right, okay, on the things that are scarce, right? Okay, so this line goes back to, I think, chapter 2, right? Way back, chapter 2, talking about, is it 2 or 3? 2, sorry, 3, sorry, 3, to give, people peace and security. It just means, do not treasure things that are difficult to attain. That's the third phrase, okay? So, so people will not become thieves, okay? Do not show desired things so the people's minds will not be confused, okay? So that's, the same idea from chapter 3, okay? It's in section 1, the third and fourth phrases, okay? All right, so further meaning of the line is, all of nature's materials have their uses. So their major materials have major uses. Minor materials have minor uses. But both types of materials are needed. So likewise for a person, whether one is more or less talented, we should not underestimate ourselves or oneself. Okay? Doesn't matter. All right? Okay? Even the less talented people have their purpose, have their use. Okay? As well as the talented ones. Okay, all right. So now there's an alternative. If you go to translations on the internet, okay, the way they translate this phrase, all right, there are another alternative to this. Okay, alternative. Just want to be aware. All right, all right. So the alternative interpretation of line is this: just as the previous phrase, is against wanting to be shiny like a jade, right? One should also not be dull like rocks. So it's neither, okay? Those are two extremes, all right? Because the implication is that we should practice moderation between these two extremes. So not shiny like jade and not dull, okay? So that's not dull like rocks. So that's one interpretation of this line, another interpretation, okay? All right, as opposed to what we just stated, you should not be shiny and try to be dull, okay? Now, like rocks. Now, the problem is that this interpretation about not shiny and not dull, because you want to be moderate, right? You don't want to fall into these extremes, is that it does not flow from lines 15 to 19, okay? So 15 is here, okay? So 15 is talking about what? The honor uses the lowly, okay? 16, the higher uses the lower as foundation. So, all right, okay. So the rulers call them, et cetera, not, lowly, et cetera, okay? And therefore the attainment of honor is not honor or various parts, okay? So what these lines 15 to 19 is telling us, well, you have to be humble, or that, the higher, the honored, or the people with power and status, etc., depend on the low, okay, on those who don't, okay, etc. All right, okay. So what the flow from that is that then it is a better interpretation that we say not to be shiny and strive to be more, or at least be dull. Don't try to attract attention or be in the limelight. Okay, all right. Okay, so that's okay. So the further understanding life 15 is this. Okay, so there's a lot. Okay, all right. Okay, so the lowly is the basis for the honor, right? That's line 15. Line 16, the lower is the foundation of the higher. Line 17, the rulers call themselves unworthy. 19, the attainment of numerous honors is not honor. So all these are characteristics of humility. Okay. Okay. Thus, in the last two lines, 20 and 21, which is what this is. Okay. These last two phrases. Okay. All right. Should also emphasize the main point of humility. All right. Oh, sorry. The high is symbolized by the J. That's what the high, okay, is represented by the J. The people with high worth, value, etc. Okay. Then the low is represented by the rocks. So these two lines should also emphasize the main point of humility. You do not want to be showy or decorative like J. You want to be low profile, unnoticed, humble and ordinary like rocks. All right. So, and yet, people say, well, what about, avoiding the two extremes? So actually, okay, humility itself is actually a practice in moderation. Okay. It is the middle ground between the two extremes of arrogance, right? Show off, and self-degradation or self-debasement. That means, you can say it's devaluing yourself, right? You're saying, oh, I'm good for nothing, right? That's degradation, self-debasement. Okay, so that's one extreme. The other extreme is, showing off, arrogance. Hey, I can do everything. I'm, know it all, do it all, etc., etc. Okay, so those are the two extremes. Humility is actually the balance between these two extremes. So being humble is not an extreme. Okay, so most people equate humility with self-degradation or that's wrong. Okay, that's wrong. So actually humility or being humble is moderate behavior in accordance to Tao. All right, so we had this in previous chapters. Okay, so all right, we talked about humility in previous chapters. So deeper understanding is we have raised the value of J very high, unfortunately, while placing the value of rocks very low, right? Okay, but in their uses, the uses of rocks do not lose out to J. J may be useful, in ornaments, decorations, etc. Like art, stuff like that, sculpture, etc. Okay, but rocks can be used to construct buildings. Rocks can be used in large construction projects. Okay, so rocks have their uses, even though it's quote unquote less valuable than or less desirable than J or gems, etc. Okay, so the higher level understanding is all right. We should value both the rocks and the J. That's the key. Okay, so we need to have a mind of equanimity. We should not just be fond of J and dislike the stones or rocks. Okay, so that's why, remember a previous state we said all of nature's materials have their uses, right? So major materials have major uses, minor ones have minor. Okay, all right. Yeah, I'll get to the summary, part 3, which talks about stones. Okay, so the implication is this. This is to caution us, okay, on not wanting the practical things that we can use our daily lives. Okay, so that's, we shouldn't just always say, oh, I just prefer the jade or, precious stones, gems over the common, quote unquote valueless rocks, okay, all the time. Right? Not to desire just the shiny superficial things, not to long for the illusory and unreal things, and not wanting what is the real true form. Okay, so this last point, do not flaunt or show off. Those who attain oneness will never brag. Those who brag will never attain oneness. There's no desire to flaunt, because why should they? All right, so that's important. All right, this is the key. Here's the conclusion. Okay, all right. Okay, so for all things, we should treat them equally. Even the most useless things all have their uses. So we need to value them as important. So do not undervalue them. Likewise, we must not look down on others. Okay, we must remain humble, no matter how high an honor, right? So, we should have humility, in other words. Okay, so we need to be harmoniously fused or at one with the heaven, the earth, the world, again, and all living things. So this is one who has attained the oneness of the Tao. This is also to know the fundamental. All right. So that's how it ties back to the conclusion here. So let's look at the overview. The conclusion here, about don't wish to be shiny like Jay, be the light, ties back to attaining oneness. Okay, that you have to be fused. You don't just discriminate between, I just want, I just desire the valuable things, okay, and ignore everything else. Because all things, whether valuable or not, high or low, right? Okay, have to be harmoniously fused. Okay, have to be treated equally. Okay, so that's how you get oneness. All right. Okay. Okay, whether high or low, whether honored or not. Okay. All right. Now let me go to the summary. Okay, we have part. Okay, we have part summary part 3 and 4. All right. Oh, okay. Before that, sorry, I want to touch upon what I'm almost near the end, right? I have like 4 minutes. I'll probably go another 15 minutes or so. Okay. All right. So a little bit an hour. Okay. So yeah, there's part 3 and part 4 of the summary, but then there is a appendix, okay, which talks about the oneness with respect to, what Lao Tzu said to the world, right? If you look at section 1, right, he's talking about, right, the world, right? Section 1 here, he's talking about all about the physical world, right? Okay. Also, it pertains to the individual person. All right. And I want to show the linkage, okay, between that and Buddha nature, okay, the oneness. Okay. So, where are we? Okay. So that's in, okay, summary of chapter. You had this last or the first time, but I added this one line. I forgot because this appendix was in a spreadsheet, so it wasn't in Word. Okay, so it has to deal with the human level. Okay, all right. So let's go to the spreadsheet. All right. Okay. So the spreadsheet, it's attaining oneness. Okay. So it has. Okay. So Lao Tzu in column B and D, right? Lao Tzu talked about that, right? The heaven has, when the heaven has cleared, attained oneness, it's clear, right? Earth, attained oneness is tranquil. The gods have divinity. The valley has abundance or surplus. Living things have health or life force. The rulers are examples or paragons, okay, standards. Okay, so that's, oops. Okay, that's what Lao Tzu said, all right, in section 1. Okay, all right. Now, we also said it applies to humans. Okay, the humans being what? Made up of what? Physical self and the true self, right? Okay, the two parts, right? Okay, so the physical self is the manifestation, our function, the function of the true self, okay, so it's manifested as the mind. So when Lao Tzu said the heaven or the world has oneness, it has clarity. So same thing. So when there's clarity manifested, whoops, let's use this. Oops. Okay, yeah. When there's clarity, or clear-mindedness or clearness, okay, is displayed or manifested in the mind, right? The state of mind. It's a reflection of, okay. Okay, what's wrong? Okay, it's a reflection of what? Our clear for, our Buddha nature essence, the innate attributes of our Buddha nature essence, which is that it's flawless, it's immaculate, it's natural, stainless, unadorned, unblemished, untainted, right? That's our Buddha nature essence, right? So that's why I have this double arrow. That means it's at one. It's flows both ways, unimpeded. Okay. All right. Okay. To the mind. Okay. To the state display. Right. So this is the function. This is the essence. Okay. All right. That's what humans are. Right. The physical self and the true self. Okay. All right. Okay. Physical self and true self. Okay. So when he has oneness, when the one or clarity, right, is displayed by the mind or manifested by the mind, that's a reflection of the attribute of our Buddha nature essence. Same thing with on the earth. So when tranquility or stability is displayed or manifested in our hearts or at home, okay, that's the external. It's a reflection of the untroubled, unperturbed, still, quiet, peaceful, idyllic, halcyon, calm Buddha nature essence. Okay, all right. Similarly, when all right, when divinity or divine wisdom is displayed or manifested by our spirituality or spiritual power, okay, in the form of faith, sincerity, belief, commitment, etc., okay? That's the external, right? That's the manifestation part. That's a reflection of our changeless, constant, eternal, immutable, permanent, unalterable self, or Buddha nature essence, okay? Similarly, when their abundance or surplus is displayed in the form externally or manifest in the form of prosperity or wealth, it could be material or non-material. That's a reflection of the self-sustaining, self-supporting, self-reliant, self-equipped, self-dependent Buddha nature essence, okay? And the last two is, when health or life force, right, is displayed or manifested in the form of our physicality or vitality, right, then that's a reflection of the essence is the source of everything, right? Our Buddha nature essence is the source of everything, right? Lastly, when, when we lead by example, we display, or we have the, we're the paragon, right? We're the paragon means the like the highest level of example, okay? The higher standard, okay? All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So when we have this when the highest levels of example or setting the standard as a role model, for example, is displayed or manifested by either by our leadership, whether at home, work, community, society, etc. Okay, that's a reflection of that everything. All these roles are temporary, right? Leadership, at home, work, community, society. They all return back to the one essence, to our Buddha nature essence. Okay, all these roles are flow from that one essence, like all these parts, okay, all come from the essence. Okay, so that's the internal, external, right? The external manifestations, and then So we talked, in the outline in section 1, especially when we talk about this part, right? Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but when we talk about this part, the display, but I want to link it to that. No, it comes from also this, right? That's the hidden part, right? The Buddha nature essence. Okay. Now, actually, this. Okay. So pretty much, we link that Lao Tzu. Even though he was talking about the external aspect, right, the worldly aspect of the oneness, he's also talking about the human aspect. Okay, of oneness. All right. Okay, that it all flows from actually our Buddha nature essence. But so this, what Lao Tzu is talking about, attaining oneness, actually is a just about a perfect match to what Sixth Patriarch said. Okay, here's what Sixth Patriarch said. Okay, right, from the Platform Sutra. So he said the essence of mind, that's the self nature, is intrinsically pure. That's this first. That's the clarity part. Okay, even though we say it's just displaying our state of mind, that's what it is. Okay, so that's what this double arrow. It's a natural reflection. Okay, to our innate, one of our innate attribute, which is our of our Buddha nature essence, which is that it is untainted, unblemished, unadorned, stainless, non-defilable, immaculate, clear, flawless, etc. Pure. Okay, that's what pure. He also said the essence of mind, or the self-nature, is intrinsically unshakable. Okay, that's here. Okay, all right. Okay, it's intrinsically unshakable or unflustered, unruffled. That's our untroubled, unperturbed, still, quiet, peaceful self. Okay, that's our unperturbed. Okay, unperturbed Buddha nature. Okay. He also said, third point, the essence of mind is intrinsically birthless and non-vanishing, free from becoming an annihilation. 自性本不生灭. Okay, all right. So that's what our immutable, permanent, eternal true self, or Buddha nature. And then the next one is saying the essence of mind, self nature, is intrinsically self-sufficient. That's our Buddha nature essence too. It is self-generated, self-equipped, self-supporting, self-sustaining, self-reliant. So then that can reflect as prosperity, wealth, in the physical aspect as a function. Okay. Then the last two is, he said, the essence of mind manifests all things or all phenomena in the cosmos, or one is all. The self-nature. So that's what it is. The essence, our Buddha nature essence, is the source of everything. Okay. And then the last one is the reverse. Okay. So all phenomena, all things in the cosmos are the essence of mind itself, or the self-nature. All is one. So everything returns to the essence. That is all the different manifestations, right, of leadership, okay, of the roles that we play, or being the role models that we play. Okay. At one point, it's going to end, right? These leadership roles don't last forever. So they all have to return back to the essence. So Sixth Patriarch said this when he achieved supreme enlightenment. Okay, that's he said. Okay, this is in chapter 1, a little bit past the middle part. Okay, of chapter 1. Okay, when he was in the Fifth Patriarch's residence. Okay, at midnight. That's when he uttered these 6 phrases, if you will. Okay, and to prove that's a proof that he achieved unsurpassed, supreme, unsurpassed, unexcelled, supreme enlightenment. That's in Chinese is 无上正等正觉. The supreme enlightenment, or we call Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Okay, so that's supreme enlightenment. But Lao Tzu uses the term attaining oneness. Okay, both at the world worldly scale and the human scale. So that's the same thing. So even though Lao Tzu used the term attaining oneness, it's the same in Buddhism as achieving supreme enlightenment. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to show you the connection. Okay, between the two. All right. Now let's go to the summary of. Now, Lao Tzu also said in the last section of this chapter is be like a rock, right? Don't be shiny like a jade. Okay. So what is the meaning of rocks in the Tao, in the Tao Te Ching? Okay, number one, it's common. Okay, it's right. Rocks are common, right? They're nothing spectacular. Okay, but a Tao cultivator may be a diamond in the rough. Okay, so that's hidden. Okay, that's concealed, but most people would not be able to tell because externally they're saying, "Oh, it's like a rock." Okay, he's nice. Okay, he's dull, or he's plain, or he's, he's not in the limelight, right? He doesn't boast, he doesn't flaunt, etc. Okay, so you're the hidden gem. Okay, even though you don't display it. Okay, so that's the humility. Now, in chapter 56, which we will get to in a couple months, that's similar to dim its glare. Okay, 和其光. Actually, this same phrase was repeated in chapter 4, but okay, all right. So there's no need to shine, to show off, or to be in the spotlight. Everything is non-conditioned, non-contrived, right? That's chapter 37 and chapter 38. Okay, we just talked about that, right? Okay, what's non-contrived, right? Non-attached, right? Okay, so, all right. So that's what one of the meaning of the rock. Second meaning is rocks are silent. They don't, well, unless, it's in a landslide or rock slide, or when, there's an earthquake. Yeah, but rocks are silent. Okay, so what does that mean? It just means no need to attract attention. You don't have to be noisy. Okay, noisy. Okay, you do your thing quietly. Okay, without making a big fuss. Okay, so that's similar to chapter 16, holding on to the truest tranquility. Right, that's in chapter 16. Okay, so that's how we connect with the Tao. Okay, so we talked about that in chapter 16. Now, rocks are everywhere, pretty much, right? It's in, all over the earth. It's all of the, actually, planets. Any planet, satellite, the moon. The moon is composed of a bunch of rocks, right? Asteroids, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, all right. Except for the sun, right? Okay, but so like the Tao, the rocks are found everywhere. They do not hide from people. So that's similar to chapter 56, mixing with the dust. That's a little translation, 同其尘. Okay. Actually, this is the same phrase as in chapter 4, by the way. Okay. All right. Okay. And lastly, okay, seems like an oxymoron here. It's priceless and valueless. Okay. This has a dual meaning. Okay. It's just like priceless and valueless. Okay. So like air or water, rocks are ubiquitous, right? Universal, common, okay? So people don't regard them as valuable. That's true, all right? Okay. Now, air, you usually, we consider that's free, right? You can breathe free, nobody's charging you for air. But water, we get charged utilities because water has to be purified, delivered to us, in, pipes, et cetera, okay? All right, unless you have our own well, okay? But rocks, I think if you look at economics, okay, or the economies of any country, not any country, but at least in the U.S., in advanced economies, rocks, or they call it, I forgot what the technical term is, or the technical or the official terminology is, but this industry dealing with rocks, will be stone quarrying or whatever. Okay, all right. They're the second largest component, that of an economy after the water utilities, or second most important or useful. Okay, it's the rock industry, if you call it that, whatever. Okay, it's used. It's it's very common or very important, because think about it. All the infrastructure, roads, yeah, even railroads, because the bed of the railroad is uses gravel and stones. Okay, bridges, roads, they all use rocks or gravel or whatever. Okay, the skyscrapers, all the big buildings, the buildings that everywhere. Okay, it's made from what? Concrete. And what's concrete? Concrete is a mixture of rocks and, I don't know, cement and stuff like that. Gravel, right? They crush the rocks with gravel, right? And then they mix it, right? Cure it, right? Okay. So that's, concrete. It's made from rocks. Okay. So the ultimate value is no value. We cannot be without rocks. Okay. Even though they're valueless. Okay, there's very little value compared to gemstones, diamonds, jades, etc. Okay, so the history of our entire civilization is built on rocks because they're too useful and versatile, right? Recall, I don't know, 10, 20,000 years ago, they call it the Neolithic. Neolithic age, or the Neolithic age is the last period of what we call, I think it was an anthropologist that gave it this terminology. You guys heard of the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age, right? That's the history of our civilization. The Stone Age is pretty long, okay? It's pretty long. It's like several 100,000 years, maybe 1,000,000 years, I forgot. But and then it's divided into, the Stone Age, it's pretty long. It's like a couple 100,000 years. That's part of the Neolithic age. There's the, Neolithic, Mesolithic, and the Paleolithic age. Okay, so that's the caveman era. Okay, the Neolithic, even that's caveman, pretty much late cave. That's when we discover the use of stone tools, right? The what's called that? The Clovis point, right? Which is a stone. It's a sharpened stone arrowhead, right? That used in spear points, arrows, etc. So for when we were hunter-gatherers in the Neolithic age, right? Okay, the use of stone flints to create fire. Okay. Before maybe volcanoes or lightning. Things burn, brushes burn. But how do you create fire? You use stone flints, right? So stones are valuable. So without the stone flints, we wouldn't have fire. And without fire, we wouldn't be able to progress beyond the Stone Age, that is to we call the Bronze Age. Okay, actually there's a gap, there's a transition period called the Copper Age, okay, in between. But regardless, without fire, we don't know how to melt the ores, the metal ores found in rocks to go to the Metal Age, to go to the Bronze Age, or even the Iron Age later on. So stones are even though they're not valuable, but they are priceless. Okay, because without the stones, our civilization will never take off. Okay, or will never advance. Okay, all right. That's why it's important. Okay, so it's priceless, even though it's valueless. Okay, all right. So lastly, I'm almost okay. Okay, the fourth point of summary is to be more like a rock. I think there's a song that says "Be more like a rock." But anyway, okay. In previous chapters, chapter 8 especially, I think we talk about be like water. Okay, and that's why. I don't know if you look at it at the totality of the Tao Te Ching. Okay, in the first half, the Tao portion, chapters 1 to chapter 37, Lao Tzu many talk about saying, "Hey, be more like water," or even an ocean. Okay, I think that's chapter 24, maybe 28, 24, something like that. Okay, anyway, all right. So, but chapter 8, be like water. Okay, so because water is you can say the essence, the fundamental, okay, the essence of the Tao, the Buddha nature, within us. Okay, now, so he used be like rocks in the second half, in the virtue section, okay, chapter 39 in this case, okay, to illustrate or to use this metaphor for a rock as a manifestation, display of that essence of our Buddha nature essence. Okay, so and what is this display manifestation is in the form of? Okay, number one, be low key like a rock, low profile. Okay, so others can shine like jade or diamond if they prefer, but you do not crave. There's no need for you to crave attention. Okay, that's what a true Tao cultivator or Tao master would be like. Second, now these are external, right? These are manifestations. Okay, so displays. Okay, and the second is rocks are silent, quiet. Okay, so speak less words, make less noise, be more meaningful with less words, have more impact with less noise or less, display. Okay, arrogance, less talking, more doing. Okay, that's what the rocks are for. That's what the rocks imply. Okay, lastly, rocks imply also what? Gravitas or steadiness. Chapter 26, 自重, right? The seriousness, okay, right? Lightness comes from the seriousness, okay, aspect. Sincerity, it means deep sincerity, deep belief, deep faith, steady, right? Something that's steady, right? So be like a rock, right? I think it's in the Gospels, right? It may be Peter. Yeah, I think that's what Jesus said, right? To Peter, you have to be like a rock, right? And then there's a story, right, of the wise home builder and the foolish home builder, right? The wise home builder built his house on a big piece of rock, okay, versus another one who built on quicksand or swamps or whatever, okay? All right, so that's gravitas. So that means be more thoughtful, be the reliable anchor that everyone can trust, okay? So that's what the rock is. Not the the superficial meaning of a rock, hard. Oh, you have to display toughness, hardness. No. That's not the attribute that Lao Tzu want to infer upon a rock for us to display. Rather, we should display these, okay, like a rock. All right? So that's why, he's not using the rock to be the essence, but to be more on the external aspect, which is, be low key, low profile. Be quiet. Do things quietly. You don't have to say so many. You don't have to display, flaunt, okay? That's also low key, low profile. And also, but you must also be steady, okay? Have gravitas, okay? All right? Okay, so that concludes, I'm a little over, okay? So that concludes the chapter 39, okay? If I have said things wrong or misinterpreted or things that not say completely, I ask for the Buddha's and Lao Tzu's guidance and forgiveness and your assistance. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to say, because we were talking about the spirit of bodhisattvas on Friday, but maybe I didn't mention it, but because today this topic kind of reminded me, so the bodhisattva depends on like the sentient beings. So you say the sentient beings are the rocks, right? Bodhisattva is like this high, like a jade. Okay, so kind of like that. But it depends on those. I mean, without the sentient beings, we cannot have bodhisattvas. Okay. But yeah, so it's, yeah, this is very, you see, this type of, this relationship or this principle, in everyday life. All depend on it's just that we tend to take these, like the rocks or whatever, the air for granted. So we don't think much of it and we don't value it. But when we're lacking in it, we realize how precious they are. And,
it's like chapter 27, Tai.
Yeah.
Following enlightenment, right? He said, the bad person is the resource of the good person.
Yeah.
So that means, the sentient beings is the resource for the bodhisattvas, for the enlightened beings. Okay.
Right.
So, right.
Yeah.
So, you have to have both, because what's the point of having bodhisattvas if there are no sentient beings? There's no need.
Right.
Right. Right. There would be no need for enlightened beings if there are no sentient beings, or that means if everybody's enlightened, right? So those who do not value their teachers and do not love their resources, okay? The sages are often good at saving others. That's chapter 27, section 2, okay? They do not abandon anyone. They're often good at saving things, and so do not abandon. Okay, that's called following enlightenment. Okay, so that's chapter 27.